The senator had no idea he was about to get cornered. Take a look. And I team 1770s. During a constituent meeting in suburban Philadelphia, one of the senator's independent leaning voters asked what should have been a straightforward question about his position on energy policy. Nothing provocative, nothing extreme, just a basic question about whether he actually supports the market principles he so often invokes when campaigning, and that's when the facade cracked. In the space of just a few seconds, he revealed far more than he intended to, and it wasn't reassuring. And I team 1770s. Today we're breaking down exactly what happened, why it matters, and what it tells us about the modern establishment political class. So if you believe that truth isn't partisan, let's jump right into it. And I team 1770s. The constituent, a small business owner from the district, opened with a polite but firm setup. Senator, I've always voted for candidates who support free markets and limited government intervention, but I want to understand your position on the new carbon tax proposal. You've said publicly that you support market-based solutions to climate issues. So my question is simple. Do you believe the government should be allowed to mandate what energy sources private businesses can use? Or should businesses have the freedom to choose their own energy mix based on cost and reliability? And I team 1770s. Now, before we play the senator's answer, credit needs to be given where it's due. The man asking the question raised a fundamentally sound point, one rooted in basic economic principles that many in the political establishment either no longer understand or choose to ignore. Because to them, criticism of regulation is not something to be answered, it is something to be managed, limited, or dismissed. The objective is not debate, but validation of predetermined policy. He's dotted devalas that is not tixi do or all take sem leaded. And this isn't speculation. We've heard this view stated openly by leading figures across the political spectrum. During recent hearings, multiple senators have argued that market failures justify sweeping regulatory mandates. Energy Secretary officials have stated that transition timelines require government intervention regardless of cost impacts. And this senator himself has repeatedly called for aggressive action on climate without ever explaining who bears the cost or by what standard success is measured. He's dotted devalas that is not tixi do or all take sem leaded. That's the backup. That's the intellectual framework operating here. Market choice, in this view, is conditional. It exists only so long as it produces approved outcomes. With that context established, let's listen carefully to how the senator attempted to spin the debate. He's dotted devalas that is not tixi do or all take sem leaded. I think I understand where you're going here, and I think at the bedrock of what you're discussing is economic freedom, right? And freedom to operate without excessive regulation. I think that we have economic freedom in this country, but we should also know that there are responsibilities that come with that freedom. We can't allow businesses to operate in ways that harm public health or the environment. He's dotted devalas that is not tixi do or all take sem leaded. But Senator, that's not what I asked. I asked whether you support government mandates on energy sources. Public health regulations already exist for emissions. That's different from telling a business they can't use natural gas even if it's cheaper and more reliable. Thanks for watching this market sense of the save and knows that. So, and also beyond emissions, I want to throw some nuance into the conversation, and I'm not trying to have an argument here. I want to have a discussion. Thanks for watching this market sense of the save and knows that. An argument is, at its most basic level, a form of discussion. But when the constituent continued to push back, the senator's staff stepped in. They didn't engage him, they moved to the next question instead. An action that said more than any rebuttal could. It suggested not disorder, but discomfort with dissent. Thanks for watching this market sense of the save and knows that. One of the establishment's most common tactics is to blur the line between regulatory authority and outright mandates, then use that confusion to control the conversation. The result is a public increasingly unclear about basic economic rights. A recent Chamber of Commerce study found that a majority of small business owners believe both environmental regulation and energy mandates restrict their operations. That tells you a great deal. One might be justified under existing law, the other represents a fundamental expansion of government power. Conflating the two does not promote clarity, it produces compliance through confusion. Thanks for watching this market sense of the save and knows that. The senator then continued his response and attempted to make his case using one of the most strained examples you're likely to hear. Thanks for watching this market sense of the save and knows that. So when it comes to energy policy, my perspective is that we absolutely support business freedom. A business can choose its suppliers, and that is protected economic activity. But when we think about one of the landmark environmental cases brought down by the courts, the ruling said that certain activities that create systemic harm are not protected. It's like you can't dump toxic waste into a river just because it's on your property because that affects everyone downstream. I have a day and I wire. Thanks for watching. Tell for more fading footing. Right. But using natural gas isn't dumping toxic waste, Senator. That's a false equivalence. Natural gas is a regulated legal energy source. You're comparing apples to illegal dumping. I have a day and I wire. Thanks for watching. Tell for more fading footing. At this point, the jokes practically write themselves. He gave one example after another of what he thinks market freedom should not include, all while completely sidestepping the constituents' original question. And this is not some abstract or theoretical concept. No matter how he tried to present it, it is actually very straightforward. It's talk in this in the plies and in the plising force of this in the soon of the force of binding out of gender servantiments force of the deference stated inside and it's in the ministated in force of the deference force of bided inside by its force of by a gender servant soon of the soon is are summon and it's abided and soon of the deference seated and soon of the summons abided and soon of the summon is servant seated and summon it's abided and summon it's abided and summon it's the Constitution's Commerce Clause grants Congress authority to regulate interstate commerce, but it does not authorize the federal government to dictate operational decisions of private businesses absent compelling justification. In simpler terms, the government has limited authority to micromanage private enterprise. Rather than address that core principle, the senator pivoted to an emotionally charged environmental example, and that was the moment the constituent pushed back harder, effectively ending the exchange. I have a day this safety in from the major. I find it active in newness. Senator, with respect, I'm not asking about toxic waste. I'm asking whether you think the government should mandate what energy sources I can use in my business when cleaner, more expensive options aren't feasible for my margins. That's a yes or no question. It's talk in this in the plies and in the plising force of this in the Soonish and it implies in the plising force of the Soonish and in a defied of the Growan and the Soonish and a plising force of the Soonish and say, well, I don't think anyone's trying to ban natural gas outright. I have a day. I after edited all bizsen, but the proposed regulations would phase it out within 10 years. That's functionally a ban with a timeline, and you're on record supporting those timelines. I have a day, and for more that I see that you nay to that they see, and you nay take about you nay to the sea. The constituent was referencing a 2023 committee hearing where the senator endorsed aggressive transition schedules for fossil fuel phase-outs. His response at the time was that market forces would adapt. But when pressed in person by someone actually operating in that market, the answer became far less confident. I have a day this know all the tending until so do. And this moment explains why so many establishment politicians avoid unscripted town halls altogether. Their positions cannot withstand sustained questioning or basic scrutiny. So instead of engaging, they rely on framing, deflection, and emotional appeals, all of which serve as substitutes for open debate. I have a day this know all the tending until so do.